dreaming with all the love his heart can stand. Dream of ways to throw it all away. Hey guys, it is Carl Brown from GuitarLessons365.com. Today we're going to a great one from John Mayer. We're going to learn how to do gravity. So this one's massive, obviously. A lot of live versions that are very popular and all that stuff. I'm going to stick with the studio version here. The soloing is just really kind of understated and just really beautiful, and the main solo is just really cool. It incorporates lots of slides and really expressive. So and the chord work has got really interesting as well, but it's also rather repetitive, so it doesn't take forever to learn the song. We got kind of a set chord progression he goes through, do some slight variations on it throughout the song, and that's what I'm going to be focused on, how to do those variations kind of like he does. He kind of messes around with it every time and plays it slightly differently with this kind of Hendrix chord style. So I'm going to talk about that and show you how to do that as well, instead of trying to do everything note for note, just kind of wing it like he does. So it's really cool. Before I get into it, please subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and ring that notification bell so you'll know when I release a new video, so you can like and comment on them, of course. And if you really like what I do here on YouTube with all these song lessons and all that stuff, and you want to support me, the best way to do it is through my Guitar Academy. So you'll see a link to that in the description below. That'll take you to my Guitar Academy and give you a free 7-day trial to it. So if you don't know what the Academy is, it contains all of my guitar courses covering everything from complete beginner stuff, so there's a couple of complete beginner courses, to more advanced courses on technique, improvisation, ear training, theory. So you can just go from one course and just kind of build and build on each other, and it's a great community right over there, and I hope you guys enjoy it. So click the link and get the free trial, and I hope to see you there. So let's jump into the song. So I'm in standard tuning here. Now we basically have a set of chords here that he does variations on throughout the song. Mostly the variations are being done on the G and the C chord. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to kind of take you through the chords themselves. And then we're going to talk about how to do those kind of improvised variations that he does in the kind of the Hendrix style, Hendrix chord style that we all know and love, and John Mayer is very, very good at. So we're going to do that first. As we go through the song, obviously I'm going to cover this intro solo first, and then we'll go through the chords and the variations, and then we'll take a look at the main solo. So now the song does start with just a G major chord, which we'll talk about in a second, to a C in its first inversion. So that's what happens before the intro solo. So this is very brief. So I'm just going to go ahead and skip to the intro solo, because those two chords are going to be when we get to the actual song, when the vocals come in and do the verse and chorus and all that stuff. This is just the first two chords of it, so we'll cover that in a second. Let's take a look at this intro solo. All right, so the first phrase of this solo looks like this. So that's just sliding into the 9th fret on the G string, then over to the 8th fret on the B string twice. And then what you do is you go to the 10th fret on the B string, bend that note up a whole step, release it, and then bend it back up. And just hold that. That's what this. So the next phrase is kind of the resolution of that. So that's going to be sliding into the 9 again, a couple times on 8, a couple of bends again at the 10th fret, but you pick both of them. And then just release that bend and pick the 10th fret twice without a bend on it. All right, so we have two phrases there. Now the third phrase is the same as the first. And then the fourth phrase is the resolution of that third one. So that's just, starts the same. Then you do a couple of bends of that 10th fret, release, pull off to 8, and then pick that again. So it is. So then you're going to end the solo by playing, which is just 9 on the G, 10 on the B. And then we get to the verse. So now, when you saw me playing earlier in the verse, I'm just kind of doing, when I get to these little sections, when I'm playing around on the G, so when I was messing around with that G, then the C, I'm adding a lot of variations there in kind of a Hendrix chord style. So how am I playing this first? Let's just go through the chords first, and I'll talk about the variations. So you're going to want to play this chord with, it's the 3rd fret on the high E and B string, kind of barred across. And then the 4th fret there on the G, 5th fret on the D. And then the thumb comes over and grabs the low root note, the 3rd fret there on the low E string. I'm kind of muting the A string with my ring finger, or you can hold both strings down if you like doing that, but most people don't. They just kind of mute the A with the bottom of the thumb or the tip of the ring finger or whatever. So that's the kind of the foundational chord underneath the variations. So that's when he goes, gravity is working against me. Now it goes to a C major chord with an E in first inversion, so it's E in the bass. So what's going on there? So we're going to be barring the 5th fret across the D, G, and the B string. So there's our C major triad. We're going to add an E in the bass. So that's how they go from the G to the C. Like I said, we'll do the variations in a second. So then it goes back to the G, and then back to the C again. Wants to bring me down. All right, now from there, so that's kind of like the verse. And then a verse, chorus, I don't know. It's one of those things, so there's not a definitive verse and chorus. And then we have this section. Oh, I'll never know what makes this man with all the love his heart can stand. Dream of ways to throw it all away. So when he goes through that chord sequence, there's one variation in the second verse, but it pretty much stays pretty steady there. At least the chords. He is kind of picking across. There's no kind of steady picking pattern or anything. He's just kind of picking across them, just kind of filling up the space. So what are those chords though? We have, now this is an A minor 7th chord. So we have the open A string, 7th fret there on the D. We're going to bar the top 3 strings across, at the 5th fret. So the E, B, and the G strings would be barred there. So that, if we just did that, that would give us an A minor chord. But what we're going to do is we're going to add this 8th fret there on the B string. And that's what makes it a minor 7, that G. So when I'm doing this, I'm just kind of picking across it. I'm not literally thinking of any type of a pattern. What makes this man with all the love? Now from here, we're going to go to, this is a D7 chord. So we're going to play this at the 5th fret there on the A string, 4th fret on the D. This flat 7 here is going to be at the minor 7th here is going to be at the 5th fret on the G string, and then we're going to double this F sharp up an octave here at the 7th fret on the B string. So we have that from this chord. Makes this man with all the love his heart can stand. So kind of do that same thing in between, just kind of pick it across it. Just those 4 middle strings. And then he goes up to this. It's really based off of an E flat major 7th chord, but I don't really feel like he's playing that E flat there. Some of the members of the band are. Some actually might be playing the B flat under it, like the 5th in the bass. But really the essential notes here that I think he's playing are like this, which is the 8th fret on the D, 7th on the G, and then 8th on the B. So he just plays that briefly. And then he goes to this E flat. He changes it to an E flat dominant 7. So then that's the 6th fret on the A, 5th fret on the D, 7th on the G. And then we take that down a half step to the D 7 chord that we did earlier. You just kind of strum across that, and then you can pick it. So all together for this, and I'm going to show you a couple of alterations I saw him do live too, which I like. So, but first we have from this part we have, so oh I'll never know what makes this man with all the love his heart can stand. Dream away to throw it on away. Now, when he gets to this E7 chord, when you see him play it live, sometimes he makes it of E9 chord. So he adds that 9th on top, which is this F. So that's the 6th fret there on the B string, and then adds a little bit more dissonance to it, and I like that. So we have this. With all the love his heart can stand, dream away to throw it all away. So you hear that? And then we're back to go through all those chords again. Oh, gravity is working against me, and gravity starts to bring me down. Oh, twice as much. So from there, it's kind of the same. So now, what's going on here with all these variations? And I'm going to talk about that nice little melodic thing that he did in the second verse. So this is very Hendrix inspired, this chord work. Everybody knows this. So we start with that G major. Now, the reason why you want to play this with your thumb down there on the low E string is because it'll freeze up the other fingers. Like if you do it this, you can't do anything with it. So if we do it like this, you're free to gotta add all these little embellishments. So So basically what I'm doing here, and he does this a lot. You gotta make it, take it up to a sus4 chord, and then back down, and then he does that quite a bit in this track. So that's kind of the most basic variation. He just takes this, and then what he does is he hammers on. You can pick like the B string and the G string together. He hammers on the 5th fret there on the G, so hammering up to that C, and then go back down, and then back down to the root note there on the D string. So wait this. And then we have that same thing again. So hearing this is where it comes into the vocals, like to that first vocal line, gravity is working against me. So you hear that? Very Hendrix influenced. All right, so that's one of the variations you can do on that G. We'll talk about a couple more in a second. Let's now take it up to the C chord. Now here, we can do a few more. Have a lot of fun with it. So, so really, this is based around this C triad, right? So we have this E in the bass, but now from there, you'll see the variations. Common variations you'll see is you can like play the 5th fret on the A and the D, and hammer up to that 7th fret on the A, while just holding the bar across those 2 strings still. And then the same thing on the D and the G string, playing that as a bar, and then hammering up to the 7th fret of the D. Now here, when you get here, a move that he does some in the song, especially very early in the song, he moves up to the 9th fret on the D, and 7th fret on the G, and 7th fret on the B, and then back down for those 3 strings, same 3 strings, 2 frets lower. So you can really just kind of hold a bar here. And so anything when you're holding that bar, and do whatever you wanted to kind of do melodically. But also move it up 2 frets. But always you want to come down and catch that G down. All right, so it's just kind of messing around with it. Let's talk about a couple more variations you can do on the G chord. So when you have this, that's the one you hear him do a lot. But you can also do like hammering on the 3 to 5 on the high E string. Remember, I'm holding that G under it still. And then hammering on the 5th fret on the B string. And hammering up to the 5th fret on the G. So one thing that you will hear him do in the song, he likes to play that G, and then he hammers on the 5th fret on the G and the high E together. And then he slides that up to the 7th fret. So just those 2 notes, you don't hear the B string now. So after you hammer on, and then he's muting the B string when he slides up. And then back to the C. I mean, the G chords. Now, in the second verse, you'll hear him do this when he gets to that. One of my favorite parts of the chord progression. So that's that C chord. What he does is he puts that G on the B string, the 8th fret. So we have those. And then moves to the sharp 11, Lydian, little Lydian flavor. So we have that, and then move that melody note down to the 7th fret on the B, and then the regular chord, the C with the 5th fret there on the B. And he goes right to that same. It's wanting more. It's gonna send me to my knees. Or remember that. By the way, that does not happen on the recording. It happens live though, and I like the sound of it. So that kind of covers what's going on with the first and second verses. You just got to play through those same exact chords, and that variation happens in the second verse. But beyond that, all the variations are kind of things you can do on your own. All right, so I know this kind of turned into a kind of a Hendrix chord style lesson, but it's a big part of the song. And if you have a good idea of what's going on with these things, it's something that you can have a lot of fun messing around with. And so, like you said, right there, everything I just played right there, just kind of, but obviously the chord structures, but all those little variations. This is stuff I made up on the fly. All right, so that's how I think you should approach the song. You're going to have a lot more fun with it, and that's how John Mayer approaches it anyway. All right, so let's get to this killer solo. So I'm going to play through this solo for you real quick, and then I'll show you how to play it note for note. So here we go. All right, so very beautiful, very tricky. Sliding around like that and accurately getting to the frets and keeping those notes sustaining, it's not easy on a clean setting, much less any setting. So let's talk about what's going on. So we have this. So we're first starting, that little first phrase is going to be 10th fret on the B string, hammer 12, and slide up to the 15. And then what you're going to do is slide back down to 12. So it's kind of like a grace note. Then pull off to 10 and hammer back on the 12. So we have this. So it sounds simple, but it is not. So, all right, now from there we have the second phrase. So this one's a little bit easier just because the slides aren't as difficult. So we're going to start, So we're going to start out with that hammer from 10 to 12 again on the B. Slide up to 17. Then we're going to play 15, pull off to 12, and slide down to 10 there. So we have this. So we have, and then 12, slide down to 8. Oh, sorry. All right, now we get to actually pick some notes. So that's going to be 15, 17 on the B, over to 19 on the high E. And then you're going to do the 15, 17 again on the B. This time now go to 17 on the high E though. Then it's the same thing again, just play it a little quicker. So we have this. All right, now from here we have this. All right, so back to the tricky slide. So we're going to start with this first 15, 17 on the B again. And then you go to the 19, a few kind of some half step bend and releases, a couple of them, and then play 15 on the high E string. And then you're going to do some whole step bend and releases at the 15th on the B, down to the 12th fret there on the B. So it is. And then what you're going to do is, so that's sliding from 10 to 12 again. Then play 15, slide up to 17, and then slide down to 10. A little bit of, never mind. So it's, and then pick 8 to end the solo, slide up to 15, and then back down to 13. So we have this. All right, so working on those slides, be careful with it. It can really tear up your calluses pretty quickly, and give you some blisters and put you out of the game for a few days. So don't overdo it. But they are hard to kind of get. You might want to have a little bit more sustain on there. I was kind of just using one preset for the whole thing, but it might be better to give yourself a little bit more help for that solo than I was giving myself. But anyway, from out of the solo, we go back to that. Oh, it's twice as much. It's twice as good, and I can't stand. I want to have good, wanting more. It's gonna send me to my knees. And then we get to the last chorus. Oh, gravity, stay the hell away from me. So this whole section right here is, for the rest of the song, is just G and C. So it gives you a lot of opportunity, this whole ending of the song as it fades out, just to working on those, work on those variations. Stuff like that, and just have a lot of fun with it. It's a great time in the song to just kind of work on all that stuff. All right, so I hope you guys enjoyed it. It's a beautiful song. There's some really great soloing, and it's highly requested over here, so I'm glad I could finally get to it. All right, so I hope to see you guys again soon for GuitarLessons365.com.